Do you think there is a much more robust role for the United States to play here in terms of supporting the opposition, or is this just a case where we have to let the Egyptians figure this out for themselves?
Well, it's a matter of standing with democracy or not. If we stand with democracy, with the principles of democracy, then we would certainly stand with the opposition. Because the opposition is not asking more than to be included in the drafting of this constitution. It's a constitution that was drafted by one segment of the Egyptian population, the Islamist one. The Coptic Christian Church was excluded. All the non-Islamist forces that are the liberal, the conservative, the socialist, you name it, any political faction, women were not included. They all walked out of the assembly that was drafting this constitution. So if we are to stand with democracy, then we have to stand with the opposition. So it's not a matter of internal Egyptian matter. The United States took the commitment of supporting the Egyptian revolution and the Egyptian nascent democracy. So it is important to stand by the opposition.
So Khairi, this actually dovetails very nicely into the question that I wanted to ask you. Given that the Constitution was written by the Muslim Brotherhood and Islamicists, and that secularists and other forces didn't participate and walked out, what do you think is the best tactic for the opposition? Should they go to the voting booths and try to defeat it with no votes, or should they boycott?
Well, I think the best thing is to go and try to vote no. Even if the referendum will not be conducted in ideal conditions that reassure that there will be enough transparency, because the judges will not be supervising this electoral process. However, a boycott has no value, unfortunately, in Egypt. Some tried during the presidential elections, and the result is that an Islamist president was elected, even if in the first round of the presidential elections, most of the votes went to the secular candidates. So the same thing could happen for the referendum. Not going would not be the solution. The best is to try to participate and try to make sure that there would be minimal rigging or violation of the law during the elections.
Stephen, how do you see this playing out? Is there a scenario here where the opposition is able to get a pretty substantial win? What do you think is the most likely thing to come out of this?
My presumption is that the Muslim Brotherhood is pushing for this so quickly now because they're confident that they know what the outcome will be. And the longer things drag out, the less confident they are that they would get their way in terms of getting the bulk of these demands in the written constitution. I agree completely with the idea that the best move for the opposition is to participate and vote no. It's always a tough choice because it's not a completely transparent, legitimate process. And the United States needs to speak more clearly about the illegitimate elements of this process and concerns about a quick lurch in the wrong direction in Egypt.
It reminds me in 2005 when Iraq held its election, and a lot of Sunni Arabs, because they didn't view it as legitimate, decided to stay out, and they had even less authority in the Iraqi government than they thought they would. Do you think this is going to unite the opposition, by the way? I've been wondering what your take is on this. I mean, if this can't do it, because initially they sort of ran a few disparate groups together against the Muslim Brotherhood, and hence the Muslim Brotherhood was able to come out on top. If this isn't going to unite them, what is going to unite them?
Well, a huge part of the problem in uniting them is fear and the actual physical intimidation of sort of opposition parties, particularly secularists and Copts, who they actually just can't sort of come together. But Stephen, to your point, is it even possible for this government to put together anything legitimate in terms of a constitution, like any kind of legitimate process, given that the election of Morsi in the first place was not really a fully legitimate election?
Well, there were problems with the legislative elections and there were problems with the presidential election. But they still had the opportunity to put together a more inclusive, transparent, participatory process that went out over a longer period of time. So there were always going to be problems. In a post-dictatorial environment, the most organized force has the upper hand, in this case, Muslim Brotherhood. They were going to have a tougher hand in the immediate aftermath.
There's still secular journalists that are in prison.
Khairi, I want to ask you, what does the Muslim Brotherhood, by holding this early, assuming that they accomplish that the Constitution is sort of ratified, if they get a yes vote on the referendum, what are they hoping to do going forward? How will they continue to further consolidate power and make sure that Egypt really reflects the kind of Egypt the Muslim Brotherhood wants?
They try to do this as fast as possible so that they can control the judiciary. The judiciary has been a problem for any Egyptian dictator for the last 60 years. It always stood for its independence. It always stood against dictators. So that was the main problem for Morsi. The judiciary was going to dissolve the Constituent Assembly that is drafting the constitution. It was about to rule on this matter, and supporters of the Muslim Brotherhood prevented the Supreme Constitutional Court from meeting. So by having the constitution approved by the Egyptian people, it would say that the people, the voice of the people is louder than that of the courts, and then it can control the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary, and it neutralized the armed forces, so it can consider that it has total control over the country. However, a constitution is not a matter of election. It's not 50% plus one. The constitution is something that is consensual and that should get at least 70–80% support so that it can pave the way towards stability in Egypt.